Hello and welcome to the Avenue Uniting Church in Blackburn in Victoria, meeting on the lands of the Wurundjeri peoples of the Kulin Nation. My name is Rod Peppiatt, Minister of the Word here. Welcome. We continue our journey towards Easter through the season of Lent. And as we've been following over the last few weeks, our theme is living in harmony. And today the theme is harmony making and joy. And my text, if you like, is a story told by Jesus, probably on a number of occasions. Story quite well known. Comes from Luke's Gospel. My story, said Jesus, is about a man who had two sons. The younger son said to his father, "I hate it around here. If you were dead, then half of your money would be mine." That made the father very sad. But instead of getting angry, he said, "You can have half my money right now. Here it is." So the younger son took the money and left. And he went far away from his home and he spent his money on wild parties and expensive food. He never wrote a letter home. His father wondered if his son had died. Soon all the money was gone. The son felt hungry now, but he had no food, no money. So he got a job looking after someone's pigs. This is awful, he thought. Here I am looking after these pigs. I hate pigs. I wish I could go home. The son knew he had made his father sad. He'd never let me come back home, except maybe I say I'm sorry. Maybe I could just ask to be a helper, a servant. So the son started walking back home. He was still a long way off when he saw his father running down the road toward him. "Father, I'm so sorry," he began. But his father wouldn't let him finish. He threw his arms around his son and gave him a kiss. Then the father called to everyone, "Come to our home. We're having a party tonight. My son has come home. Let's have a party. Let's celebrate." And they had the biggest party. But the father noticed that his older son wasn't there. So he went looking for him. The father found the older son out in the backyard. "Why aren't you at the party?" the father asked. "It's not fair," said the older brother. "That's why. I stayed at home. I was a good boy. I did all the things you asked. That other son of yours, he went away and spent all your money. And then he came home and you have a big party. You never had a party for me." "My son," said the father, "I've been able to show you my love every day. Your brother was lost. Now he's found. I felt as if your brother was dead and now he's alive. So let's be glad. Your brother is part of the family again." I wonder, what caught your attention in that story as I read it? I'm sure that most of us have heard it or read it many times. Did anything jump out at you this time as you heard it? Maybe you could imagine yourself in the crowd of hearers, listening to Jesus tell his story, rather than me reading you a Bible passage. The question I just asked is actually my favourite one to ask when we hear or study the Bible. So I'm going to ask it again. What caught your attention in the story? And I have another question. Why might I have chosen it in the context of harmony making and joy? What are the elements of harmony making you see? Where's the joy? Who is the story about for you? I'm not actually sure if I chose this story for today or it chose me. Because I was sitting with the theme that I've been following, living in harmony, and I've been wondering if my decision to link it with the themes more commonly associated with Advent, hope, peace, joy and love, whether that might have been a bit misguided. The connections of harmony making with hope and peace came pretty easily to me, but joy had me a bit stumped. Then I began to think about joy in active terms, being joyful, if you like, rather than simply happiness or, a nice feeling. And I realised that I've been thinking about harmony the same way, harmony making. And that's the point at which Jesus' story from Luke's Gospel made its appearance in my thinking. Because it struck me that it's a story of harmony making and the lack of it. The idea that it's also a parable of deep joy is probably pretty clear, isn't it? We just need to look at the dad for that. And I see it in the younger son as well. And I also see it starkly contrasted with the lack of joy in the older brother. This son of yours says it all really, doesn't it? We can feel sympathy for him though, and a sense that he's hard done by, and in some ways he probably is. We can see why he feels that at least. But for Jesus, it's a problem that he can't get beyond that. And for me, that's where the harmony making comes in. This story offers a caution to any thinking that harmony is all sweet and light. The harmony between the father and the young son is hard won, I believe. It's not a matter of sweeping things under the carpet. It's not a matter of ignoring everything and just saying, well, bygones be bygones. I know it might look like that given the father's response. But what changes that for me is that we know that so many of Jesus' responses, that's not how he, Jesus, saw things. Grace, forgiveness, compassion, they weren't the same as indulgence. They weren't the same as ignoring brokenness and willfulness. We're not told, but I think we can imagine that the outpouring of joy on the Father's part was part of a journey of soul searching, part of a journey of where did I go wrong, a journey of, well, no matter what, he's still my son. We can imagine this because we know that Jesus understood the dynamics and complexity of human relationship. He wasn't on about cheap grace, for instance. And so I sense in the dynamics of a story, and remember it's a made-up story, and it probably got told on quite a number of occasions. You do that with your good stories, don't you? But in this story, the father is able to respond when he sees his son on the road, and we're caught up in his joy. The younger son too has needed to do the work of harmony making while off with the pigs. I love the expression, he came to himself. Now sometimes that's been talked about as something like, he came to his senses. That's one way to put it. But I think he came to himself is deeper. It actually means he came to remember who he was and whose. Now maybe it was the pig food talking, or maybe he realised that who he was included his father and his brother. And he also realised that he'd been a self-centred idiot who'd inflicted sadness on his father, and that he shouldn't expect things to be the same. His journey of harmony making led him home, to the joy of his father and to the disgust of his brother. And Jesus finishes the story with that awkward conversation between the father and the older son, where the son can't understand why his father is throwing a party and the father can't understand why his son isn't joining in. We could probably say more about that, but instead I want to finish with a further question. Why do we think Jesus ended it where he did? For me, I think it's left where it is, rather than giving a happy ending that said, so the father convinced his son and they toddled in and they all joined the party. I think Jesus' story avoids that kind of ending because an open ending leaves the room for response without defining what it is. That's true in so many of his stories. And remembering he was telling them for a point, to make a point. And the openness of the story, the ending, I think leaves the space for not only the older brother, but Jesus' audience and his listeners and his followers 2,000 plus years later to make our own response to the invitation to join him at the feast of the table of harmony. Blessings. Amen.